Generational talent. Future first round.
Generational talent?
But
You're
I don't
bugging.
care who you are, you got to have a backup quarterback. So, is Coach Prime impressed with the stable behind Shedeur Sanders, his bona fide starter? Well, let's hear what Coach Prime has to
Generational?
say. I love
For
when
an
we
eight.
are 1-2. I mean, it's hard to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's hard, man. Like, I don't think nobody has that locked down. Like, if you got 4 deep at quarterback that's really good, somebody's gonna leave. This is that day and era that somebody's gonna leave. I love what Staub has accomplished, man. I love what he did in the last game last season. I love what he's done in training camp. I'm thinking pros all the time. I love what he's done in camp.
You'll be back there soon.
And you gotta understand, he's going against the ones all the time.
Listen to
So
this.
that develops him expeditiously. But I love what he's shown me, man. He's not flinching, and I try to encourage him as much as I can because I know it's tougher going against the ones like he's doing. And the reason I do that, because our tools, they desire to be ones, correct? Yeah, and everywhere in life. So why don't you play them against the ones? You know, ones that's running twos, but the twos are playing against twos. When they get in the game, who they playing against? Ones. So oftentimes
What?
I go twos versus ones, so I can see them compete against the next level, and I love it that way, and we're going to continue to do it that way. Great question, O'Neal. Okay, Neely, who's...
He puts the twos against the ones because when they get into the game, they're going to be playing against starters. Okay, that's fair. That's fair if you do that every so often to get a good look out of who your twos are and how they fare against the ones. I get it. However, you're not supposed to be preparing your twos for the games. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to prepare your twos for the games in case the ones get hurt. But you're mainly supposed to be preparing your starters for the game. And your starters need to go against that first team defense, needs to go against the first team offense. The first team offense needs to go against the first team defense. And this is where that doesn't make any sense. This is where Deon is trying to be the smartest man in the room. And this is the problem with that, is that if your twos are going against the ones, then your ones are not getting the proper defense. Shedeur is not getting the proper defense. You're not challenging him with your ones, your best defensive backs. Your ones need to be going against the ones. Your twos need to be going against the twos. Everyone is on the equal level. You are supposed to be preparing your one defense against the one offense. I mean, once in a while you want to switch it up, that's fine. To get a good look, to see who shines from your twos. But you're not supposed to be pairing your twos as the main reason for practice. You're supposed to be preparing your ones for the game. You're supposed to be preparing your starting defense is the priority against your starting offense. And he's not doing that on a consistent basis. The other thing that Deon said about Staub is after Staub had that big game against Utah, he wanted Staub out of there. So in the offseason, he brought 2 quarterbacks who were not going to challenge his son, Shedeur, but were good enough that he figured that they would beat out Staub for the number 2 role. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Destin Wade and Taylor have been a disappointment. He thought Taylor was going to beat out Staub, and it didn't happen. See, he said Staub, he expected Staub to transfer after the Utah game. I have never seen a coach say anything so crazy. This is the problem with having a coach his own sons, is that Deon hasn't brought anyone to challenge Shedeur Sanders. And the one guy that is challenging him, he's talking about hitting the portal after his best game of the season. Let me ask you something. What was Colorado's best game of the season? Most people will say TCU. Well, TCU was a 5-7 team. We thought they were better than they were. They lost to everyone. We thought, and it was the first game of the season. Colorado's best game wasn't Nebraska when the quarterback fumbled 4 times. It wasn't TCU, where they didn't have any film on them, where we thought they were better than they were because they were just in the championship game. But they had lost all their key starters. It wasn't TCU. It wasn't CSU, where they got bullied in the trenches. Their best game, and it damn sure wasn't last place Arizona State. Colorado's best game played was against Utah. Utah's a great team. It was flukish because Utah didn't have a lot of their starters. It was the last game of the season. They didn't have their pass rushers. They didn't have a lot of their stars. They didn't have, they were missing a lot of players. But Utah was the best game of Colorado's season. And they played them very well, and they should have won that game. And Deon hated every moment of it. He hated that Staub came in because he ruined the narrative. The narrative was that the offensive line was the reason for the sacks and not Shedeur. Let me ask you something. Why was Shedeur sacked so many times at Jackson State if it was the line? That's when you know it's a lie. It wasn't the line. He was sacked so many times in the SWAC. He was the number 1 sacked quarterback in the SWAC. He comes Power 5. He was the number 1 sacked quarterback in college football. Come on, man. You want to blame the line on that? I've seen so many people saying, well, if Shedeur, he didn't get sacked 52 times, he would do even better. Wait a minute. They want to reward Shedeur Sanders for getting sacked 52 times? Is that not Bizarro World? Hey, Colorado fans. Let me just school you on a little football here. Sacks are bad. Sacks bad. Touchdowns good. Sacks bad. Sacks are bad for you. You can't reward Shedeur for putting up empty stats and then say, well, if he didn't get sacked, he would have been even better. It doesn't work like that. The reason he got sacked wasn't the offensive line. Stop believing Deon. Staub obliterated that. If they played Cavassier Smoke, they would have obliterated the myth that they didn't have a running game. If he played Alton McCaskill, they would have obliterated the myth that they didn't have a run game. No. The reason that he got sacked a lot wasn't the offensive line. It was Shedeur Sanders. And once you know that and you understand that, it helps you see things in a new light. Therefore, Staub came in and he blew that concept. And that is why Deon said, I think he's going to transfer after the Utah game. Because he wanted that kid so far away from Shedeur Sanders in that team as possible. The last thing he wants is Shedeur struggling and the fans saying, well, put in Staub. He doesn't want that. He does not want that. So, this asinine look into Deion Sanders, once you see that his whole goal is to get Shedeur Sanders drafted into the league, and that the team is nothing more. He doesn't care about winning. He doesn't care about anything. All he cares about is getting Shedeur drafted into the league to show that he's a number one overall pick. He started this whole campaign that he's a generational talent and that he's going into the league and that and Travis. That's all bullshit, man. But what I'm telling you, keep an eye on is that Shedeur just holds onto the ball too long. He doesn't throw the ball. How many times have you seen him throw the ball away? He never throws the ball away. It's a travesty to see the coach get up there and state stupid shit like, I want the twos to play against the ones because when they get in the game, they're going to be playing against starters. That sounds good, until you think about it. You say, wait a minute, that means your ones are playing against your twos. What sense does that make? Well, they record practice, and they don't want Ryan Staub to get up there and show out in front of those cameras. They don't want Ryan Staub to look good. That's why he puts the ones against the twos and the twos against the ones. It's all a showcase for Shedeur Sanders. Everything Deion Sanders does is a showcase for his son to get the number one pick, to get drafted, and he's not a number one transcendent talent, it's just ridiculous. He wanted Staub to transfer. He plays the twos against the ones against the twos. They padding Shedeur's stats. Against Stanford, they had the game won. All they had to do was run the ball, but he couldn't do it. He didn't want to run the ball because he was more concerned with padding his stats. You're up 29 points in the game, and you're still throwing the ball. Deion Sanders, when he got into overtime, sudden death overtime, they took the ball and they took offense. They took the ball first. You never do that because then that gives the other team the chance to match. So if you take the ball first on offense in overtime, you're going to get one possession. The other team gets one possession. So you go down the field and it's 3rd down and 7. You run it for 3 yards. Now it's 3rd and 4th. It's 4th down, 4th and 4. It's a 30-yard field goal. You kick the field goal. Now you're up 3. Now the other team gets the ball. They get one possession. So they get to match your field goal, or they could score the touchdown. They already know that you scored 3. So they know that all they have to do is kick a field goal. So it gives them a huge advantage. Now they know if you score a touchdown, they know that they have to match that touchdown. So taking the ball first on overtime is such a faux pas. It's such a mistake. You would never do it. Deon did it twice. Smartest guy in the room. Why did he do it? He did it for one reason. He knows what he's doing. He's not a fool. The reason Deon takes the ball in overtime is he didn't want that pressure on his son, Shedeur Sanders. He didn't care about winning the game. He cared about the pressure on his son. That's why he did it. He hasn't brought in any big-name safeties. They moved Trevor Woods from starting safety, and he couldn't play with Cam, the other safety, because Cam is a cover guy, and you got a free safety like Trevor Woods. Shiloh's a free safety, but Trevor's a better he's a better free safety than Shedeur. He tried Shiloh and Trevor on the field. It didn't work. So they knew they had to, if they were going to start Shiloh, they had to move Trevor. So they didn't want to make it obvious. What they did was they moved Trevor to middle linebacker and gave him the starting middle linebacker spot. And they did this so that the pressure wouldn't be on them to say, well, they benched Trevor Woods and this. So they didn't want to be, they did this. They put who moves who. Why would they move Trevor to middle linebacker? It just didn't make sense. But they couldn't move Shiloh to middle linebacker. So this was just craziness. They never bring in players to compete. He named Shiloh the starter in preseason. He named Shedeur the starter in the first practice. He never have to compete. And for them to get up there and say Dylan Edwards didn't compete is asinine. Especially Neely, you fat piece of shit. Dude is bugging. And then you got Travis. He's playing two positions. I mean, he's not better at both positions in the fourth quarter when he's tired than two players rotating. You're telling me one guy is better than those your two players that are getting rest? This is not a video game. You're playing at altitude in Colorado where there's no oxygen, and you got Travis playing every snap. This is not a winning formula. This is all about the indoctrination to fool the fans into thinking Shedeur Sanders is the number one overall pick. Deon made a quote about the cold weather. My sons aren't going to cold weather teams. That had nothing to do with it. The draft was a year away. They don't care about cold weather. Deon doesn't care. What he wanted in that story was to put out Shedeur Sanders is the number one overall pick. I'll pull an Eli. He wants to sell the public on the fact that he wants to sell them on the idea that Shedeur is a number one overall pick. He wants to sell the public so bad on this fact that he's saying outlandish statements that don't even make sense. But he's trying to divert the discussion. He's trying to get everyone to think that Shedeur is this transcendent generational talent. He's not. He's not putting up this. He's not even putting up the stats. He doesn't throw the ball away. He's a one-read quarterback. He doesn't read the defenses well enough. They don't run the ball. People say, well, Deon ran the ball in Jackson State. The only time they ran the ball when Savion had 1,000 yards was when Deon was in the hospital. So you can't use that season. You can't use 52 sacks and to use that as your advantage and say, well, if he didn't get sacked 52 times, he'd be a better quarterback. You cannot use the negative stat and say, well, if those sacks didn't happen. The reason they happened, the reason he got sacked 52 times is because it's his fault. His pocket awareness is poor. He doesn't read the defense quick enough. They have an offense who was predicated on throwing the ball, and he doesn't take chances. He doesn't throw the ball away. He manages his completion percentage. This is why he gets sacked so many times. And keep it in mind that a lot of those plays, they were empty stats. The games were already over. Like USC, they were racking up just, against prevent defense. Shedeur is just racking up these numbers, and they don't really mean much. They were playing in a spread offense, and, that takes the tight end off the field. They had Dylan Edwards out there, who's basically a wide receiver at running back. And then they had instead of using a tight end, they used Mikey Harrison, who is a wide receiver. So now you got two wide receivers. One's a running back, one's a tight end. You're going 4 wide and 5 wide. What do you think's going to happen? Where do you think those extra wide receivers come from? They come from the protection. And then you got your running backs, and they can't block anyone. And then you got Dylan Edwards back there. And now Dylan left. Now you got new guys who've never pass blocked. Rashad Amos, how do you know? How do you trust him? To protect 2, it's a sham. So stop blaming the offensive line for Shedeur's sacks. Stop using Shedeur's 52 sacks as a positive. Sacks are bad. Okay? and stop falling for the PR. And I feel sorry for the fans because if Deon wanted to, they were right. He could have been a great coach, but he didn't recruit high school because the high school kids, in his mind, would not have developed in time to help his son. That's why he went the shortcut with the portal guys. That tells you everything you need to know about Deon, his intentions with this team. He's not building a program. What he's building, Shedeur's draft status. And that's why this whole Colorado is a sham, because all he cares about is Shedeur getting drafted, and Travis's draft status is just a cover up so that he can advocate for both men, and it doesn't look they say, oh, he's pushing Travis too. Travis is a nice player, but he doesn't have elite speed. He's about a 4.51 40-yard guy. He doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite athleticism. That's what the GMs want to see at a number 1 overall pick. They want to see freakish athleticism. He doesn't have it. Travis doesn't have it. They want to see, if you don't have that, you better have great production in college. Travis had 721 yards in 9 games. In his first season with Jackson, he had 180 yards in 9 games. 9 games each year, because the other 3 he got hurt. So, he's an injury-prone guy. That's going to work against him. He better finish this year without an injury, or they're going to say he's injury-prone. The other thing about Travis, again, he doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have great production. And he has very good production. He's a very good player, but there's levels to this. There's many levels. And to say a guy's number 1 overall, you are putting Travis ahead of guys like Rome Odunze, guys like Malik Neighbors. Like, think of the wide receivers that are going to be coming out that are on that level. And you're going to tell me Travis Hunter is up there with his 721 yards in 9 games? Because he's going next level as a wide receiver. If it's a cornerback, then you know he's not going to be number 1 overall, not even close. Defensive guys didn't even get drafted this year until the middle, late of the first round. And if he's a wide receiver, he was ranked number 97th this year. There was 96 wide receivers that put up more yards than Travis Hunter. How is that an overall number 1 pick? He doesn't have incredible speed. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the strength. He's a very good player. He's a very good college wide receiver. I personally think he would be 2nd round, but with the hype, with the defense, maybe they think they can use defense. I'll put him late 1st round. But anything more than that, no way. He was a number 1 overall recruit in college because he plays both positions, and he is developed for the college game, but he is not developed for the NFL game where everyone's an athlete. He's not going to stack up at the next level. He works hard. He's a great locker room guy, which you don't think of when you think Colorado. But Travis Hunter is not a number 1 overall pick. Stop saying that. It's ridiculous. Peace. I'm out. I love you guys. Ciao. Bye-bye.